Welcome to Soundbreaker. In today's episode, we're talking to Douglas Eriksen, who is in Cape Town, South Africa. Welcome, sir, and who is also the founder of ChainMosaic. Douglas, thank you for joining us today. And for our listeners who might not be familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself?
Happily, and thanks for having me, Bob. I really appreciate the
My
invite.
pleasure.
Yeah, my name is Douglas Eriksen. I'm the founder and CEO of ChainMosaic, and ChainMosaic is an agency that provides consultancy services as well as emerging tech solutions for mainly the media industries, but also for business processes and strategies. I myself have got a background in music. I've been playing music since I was 12 years old. I started my professional career as a musician and then moved to producing, then moved more to behind the curtain and did artist management, legal consultation, everything you can think of behind the scenes. And that actually took me all the way to tech. And now I'm just looking at new ways of distributing and interacting with media.
Amazing. Douglas, before I say what inspired you to start Chain Mosaic, what really inspired you? Where did the name came from? I like the name. It's a bit different, but I like it.
I appreciate that. I was actually from a movie whose title escapes me now. It's from a movie from the 80s. And there was a monologue that included the discussion of creating the future mosaic, which was all the small tiles that made up the future. And I really
Mhm.
love the term future mosaic. And at the time, our service offering was mainly centered around blockchain. And to me, it made sense that my focus would be on putting the tiles together that would make the blockchain work, and that came up with Chain Mosaic.
Lovely. So now let's dive into Chain Mosaic. What really drove you to start that, Chain Mosaic company? What was the goal
Uh,
behind it and the vision?
sure. So, like I said, I have a background in the music industry, and I studied music in the UK, in Bath, in England, and then once that was done, I moved back down to South Africa, where I grew up. And South Africa, has got a huge disparity between high income and low income, and I always had a huge interest in how to sort of bridge that gap. And through the music industry, I felt that that could happen. I think South Africa's got an untapped well of talent in music and cultural industries in general. And I focused heavily on that. And one of the solutions I saw for that when it started emerging as a real new technology was blockchain. And I actually started Chain Mosaic with the idea that I could leverage emerging media to help not only in the music industry but also in the wider media industries. And that's kind of why I started Chain Mosaic, is to get the foot in the door with these businesses, get the foot in the door with the creative industries, and try and make a change and bridge that gap.
Amazing. And how so far the music industry and the entertainment or creative industry been perceiving it at Chain Mosaic? What's the feedback so far on it?
Well, we started off getting quite a few clients that were mainly interested in implementing blockchain as a sort of strategic tool and a business process tool. And that's kind of where we got our bread and butter. And it's only been in the last couple of years, about 2 years now, where Chain Mosaic's been helping out a lot with some music industry projects. Number One Folkboy Records, which is a new record label that is aiming at leveraging our expertise in sort of new ways of distribution, automating business processes, and finding a new audience for music distribution. And then the other few platforms, which I'm sure we'll touch on later, is more focused on AI media production, seeing how we can sort of balance that with the creative process as well. So far, it's we're hitting on some doors.
Do you feel that the music industry and a lot of the new entrepreneurs who are starting record labels, production companies, and other services, SaaS services in the music industry focused on music, um, making their platforms or the company blockchain enabled? Like, you think they are more and more going that route or that direction?
I I'm not one of those people who think blockchain should be everywhere. Yet it's very expensive, it's complicated, and it's not easily accessible at the moment. But it's getting there, and I think there's use cases for blockchain that improve the music industry in terms of distribution. I think it's going to be the fairest model in the very near future. I think ownership is going to be a big key point in transparency through blockchain networks. So I do think that blockchain has a place in the music industry. I think it's going to heavily disrupt it further and further. And I mean, right next to that is AI. AI is coming in hard, and it is changing the way music is made, distributed, and consumed. So I think the emerging tech industries are definitely underpinning the future of the music and wider creative industries.
Amazing. And let's talk about TEDx. And how did that change your view in emerging tech in the music industry after, TEDx talk?
Yeah, I gave a TEDx talk on the value of local content, mainly around creative industries, but specifically on music. And I gave that here in South Africa. And South Africa is known for having an incredibly vibrant creative community. Some of the biggest artists of the last 100 years have been South African based or South African inspired. And I know that sounds strange, but that's because the industries tend to siphon off of the creativity here and take it elsewhere.
Hmm.
And the talk that I gave was mainly about the value of that local content and how we should be leveraging that to build the infrastructure of a third world emerging music industry rather than selling it off immediately. And slowly but surely, that's happening now. It's being more valued. We've got huge artists like Tyler coming out of South Africa, who's making a massive impact in the music industry as a whole. And her, Nasty C, Black Coffee, quite a few artists who are representing South Africa in a very positive light, and I'm not afraid to bring it back home as well. And I think that was the main point of my TEDx talk, was how we can go overseas to sort of bridge that gap, but bring it back home. And blockchain and AI in that conversation is important because it equalizes the distribution channels that South Africa used to be quite geographically isolated, and now with emerging technology, globalization, and these distribution channels, I think it equalizes a lot of that creative process. So I do think that blockchain and AI are going to make that playing field a lot more level.
And that's what ChainMosaic has really been focusing on, AI and blockchain. When did you see the opportunity and to say, you know what, from ChainMosaic, I'm going to make that my main focus for now, the blockchain and AI?
I wrote a dissertation in 2014 for my degree at the time about the development of the South African and the third world music industries. And at
Hmm.
that point, I had in that paper I actually wrote about an emerging technology or some type of platform that would allow for that sort of gap to be filled. And
Hmm.
come 2020, actually 2019, when I started getting into blockchain. I realized that this was the technology I was originally trying to hope for. And I wasn't the only one. I mean, there are tons of people who foresaw this. But when that sort of clicked, then I was like, I need to be involved in this before it gets any bigger, and hopefully try and implement it where it matters.
Now, do you feel what are you doing with blockchain and AI at Chain Mosaic? It's given artists more empowerment, more control, more creativity, and how should I say, more control of their destiny and their future.
I think so. I think, especially with Folkboy Records, started with a very close friend of mine, an amazing artist, Luke DeCizio. He found there was a community of artists, especially in the UK, who felt marginalized by their labels, taken advantage of. I mean, it's the same story with most artists these days, to be fair. And also a lack of ability to balance being their own manager, own distribution agent, promoter, everything. And I do think that's a bit unfair to expect of an artist in order to succeed. So we
Yes.
started a community-based record label, which is Folkboy Records, and we have a few pillars, but most of all, collaboration and transparency. And those are the pillars of blockchain technology as well. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And working as the chief innovation officer at Folkboy Records, it's great to watch artists, work around these new technologies, but also find creative ways to leverage them. I think the music industry is very cut and dry now, and there's new technology coming out, but we're a little bit stale in the way we leverage them. So I think blockchain and AI make it really interesting to be a creative these days, especially in the music industry.
Do you feel that the music industry about on the verge of changing in the next few years? Not just because of AI, just because of the new technologies that's coming in for
Yeah.
content consumption, for music consumption and experience. And, a lot of the younger generation, I think they want something different. They no longer want to just a pair of headphones and just listen.
Yeah.
It's no longer.
I've I've been surprised at how quickly I'm in a camp of, I think that the larger names in music, Spotify, Apple Music, these giant titans, I was in the camp that I didn't think that their business processes could adapt quick enough to the new technologies, even though they're technology based, and a lot of the times they lead the way. their music industry structures are quite outdated if you look at the modern landscape. But I've been quite surprised at how quickly they've adopted new features, how quickly they've adopted new technologies, and really tried to lead the way in a big manner. But I'm also seeing on the other side a total rejection from the creative side of the music industry, the artists, the promoters, people who take active part daily, blood, sweat, and tears into the actual performance of music and the creation of music. I think there's a big rejection on that side to the status quo and to the larger companies. The reason that can happen now is because we have alternatives. We have this decentralized infrastructure coming in. We have these easier processes, cheaper equipment. So I think it's only a matter of time before the music industry stops being monetized by large companies and rather actually is in the hand of the creator. And I know it's kind of cliche to say, but we actually have the tools to do that now.
Amazing. Good to hear. Douglas, what project you working on right now that it's based in the music industry?
So Folkboard Records is definitely the closest. We actively work in the music industry in artist development, representation, booking, and now we're innovating. We're building innovative strategies in terms of distribution, internal
Yeah.
business processes. We're a very small label. We've got a small team, but we've got some artists. I mean, we're close to, I need to get the number right now, I think 17 million streams across the label at the moment, and it's very young. And 116,000 monthly listeners, and that was a few months ago.
Amazing.
So
And how do
I
you
think
handle
we're
the distribution? Who does the distribution for Football Records?
so at the moment the artists are distributing themselves, and that's how we keep
Okay.
it. Is we're very community based. We help each other where we need to. We support each other where we need to. And again, it's not something we need to raise a ton of money for and then be at the behest of the investors. We work together as a unit. And for example, right in the beginning, myself and Luke, the founder of the label, we would be paying for the email addresses of everybody out of our own pocket, so that they would look more professional in communicating with bookers and agents.
Yes.
And
Yes.
small things like that just have carried on through the entirety of the music industry history.
Yes.
Kind of fake it till you make it. And now we're at a point where a lot of these artists have really established communities that follow them and fan bases, and it's great to see that they can do that by themselves. But obviously with the help,
Good.
it's not competition; it's collaboration.
I wouldn't call it fake
So
it till you make it. In your situation, I will call it bootstrapping. So you guys are
bootstrapping, yeah,
yes,
exactly.
true entrepreneurs. You guys, true entrepreneurs, definitely.
Yeah, so we got Folkboy Records is in there, and then other than that, working with two other projects that are music industry adjacent. One of them being Symmetry, which is
Yeah.
our best way to put it is sort of an AI algorithm platform that helps SMEs choose music for their creative media much quicker. It's quite a process to license, create, and apply stock music to something as simple as a commercial. And we're creating a platform that allows an algorithm to scan your creative media, your visual media, and immediately point in the direction of the stock music that best suits that media. So it simplifies the process, also gives stock media companies a lot more volume. And then the other one is Ghost Frame, which is currently an AI media company where we assist in the creative process, bringing sort of the from brief to execution, much smaller time frame and a lot
Yes.
better cost, so that we're giving creatives with an interest in emerging tech a wide range of tools to sort of deliver their product quicker and to scale their individual
Like,
contractor business quicker.
like what? Like what kind of
So
tools?
for example, ghostwriting. So we teach creative, inspired, sort of emerging tech interested people how to use large language models in order to create long form, short form written text, but effectively in a way that is very specific to Ghost Frame's prompting formats. And with that, they're able to take on, let's say, 20 clients instead of five, and that helps them scale their individual sort of independent business.
Amazing. Douglas, you're also involved in the Block Dojo. You're mentoring there. And how did that refine your own business strategies?
Block Dojo is a great incubator. They focus on emerging, blockchain startups, but also wider Web3 startups. AI is a big part of that now, as it is in most tech discussions. But they've got a really cool format where they bring in a bunch of, let's call them business experts or mentors, And it's almost like speed dating for startups. You spend a day meeting these startups, they meet you, you have a 5 minute conversation with each of them, you find out what their struggles are, what their triumphs are, and where they want to go. And then at the end of the day, the startups get to choose who the mentor is that they think will add the most value. And you're with them throughout that process, the 8 week incubation program. And then Block Dojo, which is now growing to be one of the most significant emerging technology incubators in the world. They introduced them at the day of presentation to a ton of investors. They help them along the way. And there have been so many times where I'm involved in these startups and I'm learning more than they're learning from me. And I think
Hmm.
that's a great thing. I've got some things to teach, but I also enjoy learning. So working at Block Dojo makes me better and hopefully allows me to help the next cohort better.
Now, you also have a law degree, and if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, well, it's a master's in law, but yeah,
Master's in law. That's a law degree.
there you go.
And
Fair.
yes, to improve. And how did that improve your business process and projects? I mean, definitely in business, two things. If you're good at numbers and also good with contracts and law, you're pretty much, I would say, destined to on your.
Yeah, well, it's funny because the reason I became a music producer is because I was a drummer at first, and I wanted to know what the producer was talking about. I didn't like not knowing, so I learned to become a producer kind of out of curiosity, and then enjoyed that thoroughly. And it's the same reason I picked up law. I wanted to know what the papers were that were controlling my day to day, business wise, personally. And as I grew older, I started realizing I don't know anything about the things that run my life mostly. So I studied law in order to sort of, again, even that playing field. And also, it's proven really helpful, not just in my personal day to day, in my business day to day, but also the people around me. I'm a lot better at understanding contract agreements. I'm a lot better at understanding how to approach certain situations in a way that doesn't affect an outcome later. And I think people underestimate how much law, and yet it's very complicated, but it really helps in your day-to-day simple processes. It really provides a lot of context. So it's helped me make some better decisions. I'll put it that way.
Let's talk about your work with Obio.
Yeah. Obio is the firm that I work with. I'm the chief product officer, and that is the company that works with Ghost Frame, works with Symmetry, and up until recently also worked with a sci-fi graphic novel known as Starfate. And all of those are creative media that are either AI impacted or leverage emerging technologies. For example, we were working on the first sci-fi novel to be distributed on the Bitcoin blockchain. Alongside that, we were working on one-on-one bot chatting with them. And OBO is very focused on the creative media industries, and we have a lot of
Hmm.
adjacency to the music industry in that. The people I work with, Clay and Benham, both really accomplished, not only in the music side, but media, working with Netflix, Apple, Crunchyroll, huge brands. And we take the media creation seriously and we love leveraging emerging tech to do so.
Amazing. You're also the Chief Innovative Officer, CIO, at Folk Boy Records. And, considering and taking your background in emerging technologies and AI and blockchain, how did that play into your role at Folk Boy Records?
Yeah, I mean, like we touched on very briefly earlier,
Yes.
yeah, Folkboy Records. We use blockchain and AI to sort of come up with new ways to distribute music. But I think most importantly, with the AI innovations happening now, where music creation is now being leveraged by AI, where lyrics are being written by AI, it's getting hard to tell. I think what's cool about
It's getting
Folkboy
that good, what
Records,
you're saying. AI
it is getting
innovation
really
or
good.
creativity, it's becoming really
Exactly.
good. And it's going to get better. You know that. It's going to get better
One
and
hundred
better and
percent.
better.
One hundred
Yes.
percent.
It's not going to
We've had
stop there.
the
Yep.
We've had the first AI artists already, not at Folkboy, but in general. We've seen lawsuits already being brought against the biggest AI firms in music. But I think what's cool about Folkboy Records is we still have artists creating the music, and we're using AI to improve the processes to get that music to the audience. So we try and put a huge emphasis on individual creativity made by humans. That being said, I'm a drummer, and I was replaced by drum machines to a large degree a long time ago. I think that that introduction of limitations only makes you more creative. So I know a lot of
Yes.
people who leverage. I know a lot of people who
Yes.
leverage
Yes.
AI to make incredible compositions because they know how to leverage it properly. So I think it's an interesting time to be a musician, and Folkboy Records is a
Yes.
cool place to work where we embrace that.
Yeah, I like what you just said. You said, you're a drummer, and drum machines been around for a long time. It didn't really replace you. I had a studio
Yeah,
back in the day in New York, I remember, and I was always buying equipment and all modules and samples and drum machines and all of that.
exactly. Yeah,
I mean, electronic records being made, most records don't have live bands. Sometimes they
yeah,
add a PC in there, but they're being made for years. That didn't replace anybody. There's still bands, people who play music, and I think it just
exactly,
and it really, it gave a bad rep in the beginning. AI replacement. No, we don't want to. No, we're all for AI. We're all for technology. Technology, what carries us forward, anyhow. What makes us
exactly.
more creative, innovative. You know, and bring us closer to being better at what we do.
I completely agree. I mean, if you, for example, one of my best favorite stories is Anderson Paak, who, with the release of Malibu, and I have to verify this one day, but the rumor was that he built it on a cracked up Mac Mini and a broken microphone he got on Amazon or eBay. And the fact that he can get these two pieces of equipment and create an incredible album like Malibu, to me, that just shows what technology is for. It's leveraging that to be creative, not letting the creativity be sucked up by technology.
Yes, yes, well said. Definitely well said, Douglas. How do you balance your tech focus and passion for the music and innovation?
Yeah, it's music was the creative industries and music specifically were my first love, and still are to a large degree, and informs a lot of the things I do. I think multitasking as a musician helps you multitask in real life too, so that helps. But when it came to applying the principles I learned in the music industry to business, I started developing like a big love for the innovative side of it, the technology that was impacting the music industry when I was growing up. I mean, I'm 32, so we started getting iPods, we started getting music at your fingertips. We didn't have to listen to full CDs anymore, skip in the car. I lived through that transition, and seeing how technology constantly changed the music industry. I realized that rather than being in the music industry and being at the tail end of innovation, I wanted to be in the technology industry, watching music be innovated and sort of having a hand in that. That's what excited me.
How do you integrate your interest in philanthropy, philanthropy to your business strategies?
Yeah, my passion or my huge interest was always in bringing something back to South Africa, and
Mm.
that extends to most emerging or developing nations. I've always had a kind of a spiteful nature against the lack of infrastructure that supports creative industries in third world countries. I think they're very
Yes.
centralized, but the music industry has shown over the last few years that the real markets that are emerging now are the emerging markets. So South America, Africa, China, Korea. These markets are starting to take over the music industry in a big way. And I think that's always been inevitable. And not because suddenly we decided that's where the focus is, it's because that's where, when you put limitations in front of a people, they will be more creative with those limitations. And then cool stuff comes out. And that's why we're starting to see this shift. Also, technology is making it easier for somebody in South Africa to get somebody in America to hear their music. Before that wasn't so easy, and we're
Yes.
right at that crux point now where geography doesn't matter, and people are starting to realize how to sort of break that barrier. So for me, I try and make sure any project I'm working on has some way to make a positive impact, whether it be in giving artists a way to sort of make a living, or even in charitable donations. I think it's important, especially growing up in South Africa. You can't ignore it, and I don't want to ignore it. So it informs most of my decisions business wise.
Yes. What's your best advice for entrepreneurs and people who's passionate about music business and they want to get into it, kind of carve their own path and make their own mark?
I always say there's no right answer, but there are a lot of wrong answers. And as long as you avoid those, you'll be fine. So I guess the advice I would give is follow the people that inspire you. Learn their ways, but implement them in a practical way. The other thing is a lot of musicians I know have a day job, and it makes it hard to sort of turn into the music industry directly. And if you're an entrepreneur, what you have to be as an independent musician these days, how do you
Yes.
set up a platform? How do you manage yourself? How do you promote yourself? I always, one step at a time one task at a time, learn how to do it well, and then move on to the next. Because if you're trying to do everything at once, you're not going to get your music out there. And then finally, one of my favorite sayings is, spend the weekends building the life that you want in the rest of your week. So
Amazing. I like
it's a
that.
tough thing to do. Tough thing to do, but good luck to anybody listening.
Before we wrap it up, this amazing, I would say, insightful, motivating, inspiring interview. Anything you coming up with that we should be on the lookout for? Our listeners and viewers, fans, follow your followers, say, hey, be on the lookout for the next 2 months. We're coming up with a new function, a new project, or a new feature.
Yeah, I'm working on so many projects, and I thoroughly am very busy. But seeing as this is a Soundbreaker podcast, I will say keep an eye out for Folkboy Records. You can find us on Twitter, you can find us on LinkedIn, and you can go to our website, folkboyrecords.com, and check out the music that our artists are releasing, because we have some of the best artists I've ever heard. They'll make you cry, they'll make you laugh, and they're performing all around the UK. Luke DeCizio, one of our founders and one of our best artists, is releasing his album soon, his new album that was written for the birth of his baby daughter, Theo. So anybody who is interested in hearing a real sonic masterpiece about becoming a new parent, feel free to go and check out that album, because it is good. But other than that, keep an eye out for Folkboy Records, because we are growing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Thank you very much. Well, thanks for joining us today, Douglas. And this concludes today's episode of Soundbreaker. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned for new episodes. Thank you and see ya.
Thanks, Bob.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.